Since 1975, waste from the ancient Lebanese city of Saida, now a suburb of Beirut, has been brought here to an uncontrolled dump on the edge of the city. Over 80 tons of it every day. What was a sandy beach has been replaced by a trash mountain, well over 40 meters in height. As the rubbish decomposes, chemicals leach into the ground, while methane, a pernicious greenhouse gas, regularly blows over the city's nearly 200,000 inhabitants. And the tumbling trash and liquid runoff flows directly into the sea, affecting the local fishermen and their livelihoods. Over there is Italy. Up there is Cyprus. Syria's next door, and north of Syria is the Turkish coast. And there have been complaints from all those countries about the garbage that floats up onto their beaches, much of which comes from this garbage mountain here. What's recently become known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is situated in an ocean gyre in the North Pacific, covering an area of 20 million square kilometers, where the rotation of currents draws in waste material from surrounding areas, which in this case includes North America and Japan. It takes an average of 6 years for a piece of rubbish to reach the center of the gyre, by which time it will have been eroded into tiny fragments, which is why it's so difficult to measure the true extent of the problem.
Throwaway plastics take a lot of space and don't biodegrade. Only we humans make waste that nature can't digest.
Since his first discovery, Moore has logged over 100,000 miles of research voyages, and he currently spends 100 days a year meticulously logging trash from his trawls.
There are very few areas of the world ocean which are plastic-free. The United Nations itself estimates 46,000 pieces per square kilometer on average in the world ocean. It's rare to find a trawl that has no plastic in it.
But there are 4 other ocean gyres, and 2 of Moore's colleagues have traveled over 20,000 miles to see if, like the North Pacific gyre, they too are polluted.
Yeah, you hear just about one, the North Pacific gyre that Captain Moore had studied 15 years ago, but there was no one going to the other 4. The Northern Hemisphere has 2. Then there are 3 in the South, and no one had been in those gyres to see what was happening.
There's been this myth in the media about an island of garbage the size of Texas and then twice the size of Texas. It isn't like that at all. And in fact, it's more like this, a thin plastic soup. And this is actually a very concentrated sample. This is right off the coast of California. But you'll see it's small, broken down fragments of plastic that share space with zooplankton.
There's no place that we have gone where we didn't find at least some particles of plastic, small confetti in our surface samples. It's everywhere.
It seemed to me that we were putting a lot of plastics on the planet, and they were mostly ending up in landfills or in places where they shouldn't, doing harm instead of good. And I thought it would be good for the planet and the environment to figure out how to get those plastics back and reuse them. And I also thought it would be a good business proposition. So we had to come up with brand new technology. So the first thing is we went after the most complex waste streams in the world because they're so abundant and nobody was solving that problem. Secondly, we came up with technology that could not only separate the non-plastics from the plastics at a particle level, but also separate the plastics at the particle level by type, grade, and color. And no one even thought that was possible, including many of my engineers when we started.
Unlike many recycled plastics, with this technology, there is no loss of quality, turning the recycled material into an incredible resource, more valuable than recycled steel.
We saw a picture of the turtle with the carrier bag in its mouth and of an albatross who had like pounds of plastic in its stomach. And it consisted of bottle caps, cigarette lighter, toothbrush, plastic toys, stuff that we were using on a daily basis. And my husband saw that picture of the turtle and he said, we are never taking another carrier bag ever again.
How much waste do you generate a year? Have you ever worked it out?
Last year we created a carrier bag of waste.
What, carrier bag?
Yeah.
What, you mean this?
Yes.
Of waste?
Of landfill waste.
In a year? How many are you?
3. And a rabbit.
3 of you and a rabbit. Well, the rabbit, I suppose, eats most things. But anyway, that's extraordinary. But what about your newspapers?
They get recycled.
So waste that cannot be recycled for a whole year. That's absolutely amazing. I would love to know, I mean, how you do it. Purely by how you choose to shop, or are there other ways?
It starts before you get to the checkout. You have to make a conscious decision before you hit the checkout.
Right.
So basically, you pick something up, oh, that looks nice.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, what am I going to do with either this product or this packaging when I have finished using it? And so whereas most people perhaps turn it over to look at the price, we turn it over to look at the recycling information.
Right.
Our aim at Unpackaged is to help customers refill their own containers instead of creating more packaging waste.
So I bring my containers here for everything?
You bring your container. If it's dry goods that you want, you can either bring a bag, or if you bring a Tupperware, we just weigh it first, then you just fill it up. It means you can buy exactly the amount you want as well, which means you don't waste any food.
If I'm a bloke and I'm sort of just didn't plan to do some shopping, then I would have one of these, would I?
That's exactly what you'd have.
I would have a little bag in my pocket or in my... I do actually carry a bag normally. And this...
This is just the next step on. Lots of people are used to going to the supermarket and carrying a reusable bag to put things in. So this is just replacing the packaging to go in your reusable bag.
This is amazing.
When we first started, we started on a market stall. We were given a small grant to test the idea out, to see if anybody was really into the refilling idea. And what we found, and it's still true today, is it takes people 2 or 3 goes to remember to bring their own packaging. First time they forget, second time they forget, third time they remember one thing. After that, it just becomes a new habit. The herbs and spices are really interesting because how many jars do you have at the back of the cupboard where you wanted half a nutmeg for something and you've now got 2 that you don't use and they've gone off?
They've gone off, and the jars have become coated in sort of all the frying fat and whatever.
Exactly. So
sticky.
People just come down, bring their jars, and we fill them up. Ultimately, it's a good business model. It's cheaper for the supplier to put something in one bulk container than put it in lots of different bits of packaging. It's cheaper for me, I should get a good margin on it, and we should be able to pass it on at an affordable price to our customers, so everybody wins and there's no environmental impact.
I'm a volunteer with Incredible Edible Todmorden. We are all unpaid volunteers. We all worried about the state of things and decided we would do something. And we decided we use food because food crosses all cultures and creeds. So we thought if we'd use food, we would reach everybody. So the idea was hatched around a kitchen table which was covered in food, and somebody shouted out, why don't you just call it Incredible Edible Todmorden? And it's a mouthful, but it's stuck. Most of the townsfolk thought we were crazy. Somebody actually wrote a letter to the local newspaper and said, these people are crazy. They are planting food in public places and somebody will come along and take it all. Well, yes, exactly, that's why we're doing it. It did take 18 months before people would start picking because it's the very English thing, they thought it was stealing and it wasn't quite right, but now we have no surplus. We have to beg apples for Harvest Festival because we don't have an apple left. There are hundreds of Incredible Edible groups now in towns all across the world. From New Zealand to Africa, there's an Incredible Edible Benin. There are 4, I think, in Manchester, 3 in London.